Faith is the substance of things hoped for, Murdo MacDonald-Bayne. Faith with most people is faith in something they do not know, and this is always relative to the self, apart from the self. This faith can never be real, nor can it bring results, because it is always accompanied with its neutralizer doubt. Some say that their faith is in God, but when you pursue this faith to its lair, it dissolves into a vagueness that betrays the fact that this faith is not real. How can it be real when their faith is upon a God they do not know? Now God is life, He is the living God, and the fact that you and I are alive is proof that God is living in us. Therefore God and you and I cannot be separate or apart from you or I, but is our very existence. A further proof of this, God is absolute, infinite, therefore there can be nothing outside Him, and He must be in every living soul, otherwise He could not be infinite. That is why the Master said, "Know ye not I am in the Father, and the Father is in me, I and the Father are one," and this must be the same with you and I, otherwise God could not be infinite. Therefore faith is an awareness of the presence of God in ourselves. This is not a faith in some outside God, or faith in any individual or any external agency, nor anything relative to the self, but an awareness by the self of the indwelling Creator, not a separate Creator but the one and only Creator. It is the Father who ever remaineth within you who does the work. Then whatever you ask when you pray, believe you have received it and you will have it. This is the way in which the Father works. I am aware that this faith is not obtained in a day, because you have to cleanse the mind of false teachings and beliefs in separation before it becomes a reality to you. Unless you begin to discern that which hinders the awareness of reality, you will never understand faith and the mighty power of faith. The great power of faith lies in the realization of the presence as the self, I and the Father are one. This is the faith I want you to understand, that whatever you ask it shall be done unto you. The Father, whoever remaineth within me doeth the work. But you must ask aright, that is, believe you have received and you will have it. The faith that most have, and perhaps the faith that you have at present, has its opponent doubt. Then there is a continual battle for supremacy. This is the double-minded creature who gets nothing from the Lord, with the result that if the thing asked for is not forthcoming in the way you think it should come, doubt wins. In Genesis, we are told, in other words, that the divine principle makes things by itself, becoming them, and this includes the individual. Therefore it cannot have any other than its own natural movement in the individual, pushing forward to fuller and fuller expression of itself in the individual who realizes it. This is the awareness of the presence, not a presence separate or apart from the individual, but the actual inner self, which is universal in nature. It is this same self that is in every other self. Love your neighbor as yourself is the command of the Master, for your neighbor is in reality the self. This is the true meaning of the Master's words, and unless we realize this, we will still live in separation and our faith will count for naught. In understanding the Master and his words and works, I could not do better than relate the incident when Peter saw the Master walking upon the water on the Sea of Galilee. It was near Bethsaida, 7 miles from Capernaum, where the Master restored the little girl to life, of which I spoke in my last letter to you. It was also on the side of the hill leading down to the Sea of Galilee that Jesus fed the multitude from the few loaves and fishes that were at hand. After all had been served, the scraps and fragments gathered up filled many wicker baskets and were again distributed to the poor people of Capernaum for the morrow's meal. Naturally, enthusiasm amongst the people was at its height, for they were proclaiming the Master, the Messiah, the King of the Jews, provider of the people, ruler of Israel, and the crowd was swept with intense excitement. Jesus, recognizing the peril to his mission, ordered his 12 disciples to cross the Sea of Galilee to the other side in the darkness, while he returned to the hills nearby, where he spent a few hours in divine meditation, for he was fully aware of the presence of the Father within. Early in the morning the Master saw a storm rising on the Sea of Galilee, and he knew the fear that would take hold of his disciples in their tiny craft, for a storm on the Sea of Galilee is a great ordeal, and those who have been on the sea at such a time will well remember this fact. Jesus therefore wished to assure his disciples that all was well, so he stepped upon the water in the direction in which he knew the small boat would be. With his complete awareness of the presence, he did not have to use occult power necessary for levitation in accomplishing such a feat. Knowing this, he walked upon the water, and it was to him as solid as the ground beneath our feet. It was in the early morning when he came upon his disciples. When they saw a figure swiftly moving towards them, they were greatly afraid. When they heard a voice calling to them out of the morning mist, "It is I, be not afraid," you can imagine what was in their minds. After the miracle of the feeding of the multitude, the healing of the little girl, and now to see the Master walking upon the water was just as much as they could take. Then Peter, in all his impulsive excitement and in the depths of his own thought, free from all limitation, cried out, "Master, Master, direct me to walk to thee on the waves." The Master, understanding the feelings of his disciples, directed him to walk towards him. Now Peter's great inner forces were aroused by his faith in the Master, and he sprang from the side of the boat and began to walk towards the Master. But when Peter saw himself on the water, he lost faith in himself. He could hardly believe that such a thing was possible, so the power left him, the presence was no longer established in his consciousness, and he began to sink beneath the waves. The Master realized what had happened to his disciple, stepped forward quickly, caught him by the hand and ordered him to walk, saying, "Peter, the water is solid beneath your feet," and Peter found it to be so. They both entered the boat together and then proceeded to the shore near Capernaum. It is this lesson about Peter that I want you to see, and you will take more from it than hundreds of books written on faith. When Peter saw Jesus walking on the water, his whole self was alive with faith. For the Master had told them so often that what he could do they also could do if they properly understood his words, so without hesitation Peter walked on the waves. But when he saw himself doing something that was unfamiliar to his habitual belief, he allowed limitation to enter into his consciousness. He lost that awareness. He succumbed to his mortal consciousness, to his habitual belief in limitation. The unfamiliar thing he was doing was beyond the range of his habitual beliefs, so fear entered in. His faith was not strong enough to go beyond past experiences. Is this not what you are all doing? But you do not discern it. That is the tragedy of it all. Do you think that you could walk on the water? Your answer to this question will prove whether your habitual belief in limitation exists, or not, that vast experiences limit your faith. Jesus says, "All is possible to him that believeth." Now you can see what I mean by faith, not the common faith that has as its partner the fool called doubt. But still, if you do not discern this limitation, you will never be able to deal with it properly unless you see that doubt does not exist in reality, but only in your own mind. You will never understand the faith of the Master until you have cleared your consciousness of separation. Remember, you are continually asking by your daily thinking, and that you believe you have received, so shall you have. Job said, "That which I feared came upon me." This is the same law in operation. What you think in fear and in faith is equally produced. Then surely a true understanding of the faith that is built upon the rock of truth is all important to you. According to your past experiences, you calculate upon the possibility or the impossibility to accomplish. Therefore you have to look beyond your experiences, realizing the presence, and in that presence all is possible, knowing that whatever you ask, so it shall be done unto you. Remember, the Father and you are one. There can be no separation between you. Therefore whatever you ask the Father, he will do for you. It is the Father who doeth the work. In Hebrews chapter 11 verse L and 3, Eastern text, we read, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, just as it was the substance of things which have come to pass, and it is the evidence of things not seen." For it is through faith we understand that the worlds were formed by the word of God, so that things which are seen came to be from those which are not seen. The faith with God must necessarily be inherent in man, because man is made in his image and likeness. The Word was with God, and God was that Word, and that Word became flesh. And by this Word you create. What a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Benediction. O Eternal One, that which is in the beginning is now and shall ever be the same. It is thy Word that has become flesh, and thou art that Word, and that Word dwells in me to create what I think. Let me listen to the one voice that creates out of the void, so that no other sound is heard but thine. It is thy presence alone that is the proof of our oneness, and whatever I ask of thee, knowing that I have received, I shall have, O benign one. My peace and my love remain with you. Yours sincerely, 𝗦 MacDonald-Bayne.